encounter a straight switch and go straight, and then switch to curved. Likewise, the next one will go curved and switch it back to straight.
Hello, I'm James Ingram. This video was digitized from a 1992 videotape series named V9202.
We're back to our automatic switching system again that we had talking about earlier on the floor. Notice the automatic switching system is still set up as an automatic passing sighting like we were demonstrating earlier. Now, well, to review, remember we said this automatic switching system could be configured in two ways. The first way was to configure it as an automatic passing sighting as we were demonstrating it earlier, as it's still set up here and as you saw in the previous roll-ins of display layout shots. The second way we said we could configure this automatic switching system was to configure it for automatic route selection, where it would route trains down different routes. So now we're going to talk about the automatic route selection aspect of this thing. If you can picture an imaginary loop of track, say the trains would be going this direction, picture an imaginary loop of track coming off the end of the switch, going around here and going back, and then coming in to the diverging switch back here in the rear. Just picture an imaginary loop of track, if you will, that would connect this switching system into a complete circle. So if we take this rear switch that's sitting back here and kind of slide it around the loop, imagine picking up this rear switch and kind of sliding it around the loop of track and putting it in front of this converging switch. Now see if I can do that now if I don't get all tangled up in the wires here. Just imagine picking up this switch and sliding it around the loop of track. So this switch is now in front of the converging switch. So what we've got now, I need to turn it around. So we've slid that switch all the way around the loop of track and relocated to a new position in front of the converging switch. So what we've got now, we've essentially lengthened the legs of the siding, so instead of being legs of a passing siding, those legs of the siding are really the main routes of the layout, and they're two routes. So picture now a train at this point in between the switches. It would go over this switch one of two directions and have two routes to choose to follow to get around the layout. It would go around the layout via one of two routes and then come back together here at a converging switch. Notice the track contacts now. What happens? This switch is now set to straight. This one will still float as before, so which position really doesn't matter. The trains will push it whatever direction they need to. This switch here is set to straight, so imagine a train coming through this switch and across this switch and going down the straight route. When it goes over this track contact, and this contact will actually be further away, but when it passes over this track contact, after it's gone through the switch, it'll throw that switch to curved. The result of that is the next time that either that train or a second train comes around, the train will be routed to the curved path. Now, that train going down the curved path will pass over this track contact, and the switch will go back to straight. So the next train coming through this switching area will encounter a straight switch and go straight, and then switch to curved. Likewise, the next one will go curved and switch it back to straight. This can actually operate. This is the basics of the automatic route selection. The trains passing through the diverging switch, then when they get through it, throwing the switch to the other direction behind them. This will work on one train. If you just have one train running around here, it'll go through, say, straight the first time, come around the loop. Well, when it goes through straight the first time, it'll switch to curved. It'll go around the loop, encounter a now curved switch, switch it back to straight, go around the loop, encounter a now straight switch, and go through the switch straight, and on and on. And you can do that without any blocking. That switch, as you've seen, is blocked back here, but you don't really need blocking for one train. Now you can one train. Now you can put two trains on this route, and two trains will operate because the first one will go through the switch straight, throw it to curved after it goes through it. Your second train will come along and go the curved route. When they come together at the blocks, one of them will have to stop because the block can only be powered on one side. There's either going to be power over here or over here, but never both places, just one side. So one of the trains will come through happening right away and come to the diverging switch and take whichever path it's set for. So this thing will operate two trains also as it's configured here on the floor. In addition, which I'll show in some of the roll-in videos from display layouts, you can put a block in each leg, which I've done, and control four trains, because the block will essentially allow you to run a train in each, two trains in each leg, having a block in each leg. So there's really, with this basic switching system, I've used it really three different ways. I've used it for single train operation, two train operation, as it's shown here, and by adding a pair of blocks, one in each leg, I've used it for four train operation. This publication, P9105, that we were looking at earlier, automatic switching system, has several diagrams in it entitled time sequence diagrams. Look at one of those for automatic route selection for one train. This is figure 33, titled time sequence for automatic routing one train. It has about a series of several little diagrams that attempt to show you snapshots in time of what's happening for one train operating on an automatic routing selection system. Here's the train initially. Back here it shows this switch. This is the converging switch. Remember, the one with the floating points that the train just pushes the switch to whatever direction it needs to. Shows that thing set to curved. This switch down here, the diverging switch, which is the one that's powered, is set to curved. So as the train moves down through here, it shows up on this next diagram, and it takes the curved route. The heavy lines show the direction of which these switches are set. Notice this is dotted, and this is heavy on the curved side to show it's set to curved. So this train goes to curved. In the next time panel, it's going around the curve, and it goes over track contact T1. In this panel, it's shown right over T1. So that switch identified as S1 is changing from curved to straight as that engine is on it. It's shown with both the lines dotted to indicate it's in a transition state of going from one to the other. Going to the next diagram, it is continued around after it passed over T1. It's continued around the loop and going up around the other end. Now it's approaching the converging switch again. Moving over this panel, it'll go through the converging switch and push the points to curved as it goes through, leaving them in the curved state, as shown by the heavy line here. It's now approaching the diverging switch, which has now been set to straight. In the next panel, it has passed through the straight switch, and it's on the other track contact identified as T2, and it's changing the switch from straight back to curve. And again, the switch is shown with both sides dotted to indicate that it's in a transition state of changing. Finally, continue on to the last panel. The train is continued on around up the other side and is going around this way. And this is where we started. This sketch here, if you look at it, is the same as this sketch over here. So this sequence will just repeat all over again.